Alright, welcome to the channel. So in this channel, again, this is really made for the person that is getting into the hobby, perhaps doesn't have that much experience in the hobby, or just wants some information. So here, I'm going to be talking about shocks really quick, and this applies to shocks for Traxxas vehicles such as Bandit, Slash, Rustler, etc. So the factory shocks, these are the shocks that generally come standard on most of their vehicles, especially the brush versions. But it's a plastic body with a plastic cap. It does have these little preload clips. I mean, you can just move this and then clip off and clip back on. And then just replace them depending on how much preload you want, right? But the main point is once you start getting a little more speed, say you have a VXL system, right? These came off of a VXL buggy, a Bandit. Once you start jumping or getting a little more aggressive and these start taking a little more abuse, these plastic caps will pop off. Now there's two solutions. There's a variety of solutions, but two main solutions keeping everything Traxxas. You can get the Traxxas aluminum caps and they work great, but these are still pretty thin. There isn't much oil in there. So the shocks are still going to wear, and eventually these shafts, you're going to bend them. So first the caps will pop off, and then once you fix that problem, well, the pressure's got to go somewhere. They can't pop the cap off. The shafts are going to bend. Now you could remove this, go in the piston, drill slightly bigger holes, but then you're going to have to use slightly thicker oil. So you're not really solving the problem. So a way to solve the problem, Traxxas actually has their GTR shocks, their line, and they have these here. They're the 32517. If you get the X, you get the dark anodized. If you don't get the X, you get the blue. They're both really cool. Today we're going to be working actually on the non-blue. But if you're doing a Traxxas Slash, Bandit, etc., you want the long, which is this, for the front, and you want generally the extra long for the rear, which is this number right here, 32506. And again, X if you want the other color. Now, the build is the same for the front and the rear. The only thing that's going to change is the weight oil that you select on using. Traxxas does provide oil in this packet. I mean, they have whole instructions. Read the instructions in case you ever need to rebuild them. So they're right in here. Instructions are pretty good. If you've built these, then you're probably going to skip them, as I'm going to skip them. But you should read them if it's the first time you build them. The oil is in here. I am not going to be using this oil just because the purpose of the shock is not going to be just the stock Slash or Bandit, but even then I run different oils depending on the surface. But here we have two shocks, and we have this baggie of parts, and you will be needing some of the parts in here, not everything. This is for the oil. I mean, you can just put this aside. You're going to be needing some of this hardware. Now I'm going to put the screws aside. This is mainly what I want, these little caps for the springs. And then you can just, recycle as much as you can. But we have these here. Now these here do not have oil, but the nice thing about them is they are pre-assembled for you. The only thing you have to do is just unscrew the cap. Now yes, the caps are plastic, but the body's aluminum, and that's really all you need for shocks. For whatever you're generally going to be using, a Slash or a Bandit or a Rustler, generally, unless you're truly abusing it beyond imagination. And the reason why is the aluminum and the plastic, they really hold on very well. If you look at other vehicles, they use the same thing. For example, if you ever look at Techno, they use a similar setup. It's plastic and then aluminum bodies, and they hold up very good. I mean, you can jump them really high, do back flips. They will land, and they work fabulous. So that's really all you need. If you want to go aluminum on aluminum, that's fine. That works. I mean, some people do prefer that. But this works just as well. One of the things is I generally pull the shaft down, and then I'm going to fill it with oil, and then I just push the shaft up. And that's generally what I do. So select your oil, whatever oil you want. Team Associated makes some pretty good oil. I mean, Lucas is really the company that formulates it. And if you know anything about Lucas, they make great oils. There's some other brands too that you can use. This is what I happen to have on hand. Now, let's be clear. If this was going on my Slash, I would probably be looking at, depending if it was front and rear and the surface, maybe 35 weight. I may go up to 47.5, maybe in the front. So if it's high traction, I'll probably go to 47.5 in the front. It helps with traction rolling, and I'll talk about the springs as well a little later. These are actually going to go in the rear of a drag car build. So you can follow those videos as well. And the reason why I'm using the front shocks on the rear of a drag car is because it keeps the arms perfectly level on the inner holes so that the shocks are perfectly vertical. Because on a drag car, I'm not going to be taking turns. I just want the shocks to absorb as much as they can as the vehicle is squatting. So I want them to keep the vehicle from squatting too much. That's the reason why. So I'm going to be experimenting with really thick oil, so ignore the oil that I'm going to be using here. Actually, you probably already saw it, but I'm going to be filling them up, pouring the oil in, and then I'm going to show you the next steps shortly. So I am using extremely heavy oil, but you can see the bubble there. So all I'm doing is I'm pushing up on the shaft, pushing up, and then that's pushing the air bubble out. And then I'm just going to pull back down. Now, like I said, this is extremely heavy oil that I'm using. I'm actually using diff oil. And the reason why is I really want to keep the car from not squatting too much. If you overdo it, and I'll find out in testing, your wheels are going to come off the ground and you're going to go on the wheelie bar. So I'll see. If that happens, then I'll go to something lighter. But I did pour diff oil in here. I am going to use springs from the E-Revo. I'm going to be using these because these are thicker. It's the black ones. I'm going to be using these in the rear. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted this length, because if I use these longer ones, which are the rear, or the XX long, these, there's no adjustment in the arms to keep them from coming down any further. So I wanted to keep that flat level. That's the reason why I'm doing this. So later on, maybe I'll change oil, go to something else. So again, I am using diff fluid in the shocks, but I'm not going to be using this out for bashing. This is just going to be strictly on the strip. It's just going to be drag racing. That is it. So I don't really care about jumping off hills, other random jumps, because that is not the purpose of this build. Now, something you always want to have also on hand is a rag whenever you're working with oil. If you have something that's rubber, don't get the oil on it. Oil tends to make rubber tacky. So that is it. So this is pretty much it. One last time. There's going to be some oil that's going to leak, but that is all right. So I'm going to build this one. Really, you build one. It's the same process for the other one. And I'm going to put the cap on, but I pulled the shaft all the way down. Now I'm going to grab the cap. I'm going to try to seat it. Something that I generally do when I'm putting caps on, and I'll show you with the other one, is I will actually go left first, and then once I feel it kind of click and sit, then I'll start threading on. Now here, I'm actually going to thread all the way on, and then I'm going to back it out a little. And the reason why I'm going to back it out a little is because I'm actually going to unpack it. And what I mean by unpack it is, you will see. So here, for example, oil's too thick. But anyway, if I try pressing it in, it's really hard, and then it pushes it out right away. So you feel that pressure. So when you take that pack out, it makes it easier for this to travel all the way up, and then it might come out a little. But here it was, you can feel a lot of pressure, not to mention that it is thicker oil. So now I'm going to back this out a little. And depending on how much pack you want, you may want to bring it up all the way. So bring the shaft all the way. Or I'm just going to go halfway. You can go halfway and then hold it there. And make sure the other one's the same distance as well. I'm just doing it by hand mainly for the camera. Afterwards I'm going to measure, but you always want to measure. And then close it. And then once you close it, there we go, clean the excess off. Okay, it's closed. Now just move it up and down and then feel for it. So here, way too much pack. So I'm actually going to open it up again. But this time, I'm going to keep going, going, going. I'm going to go all the way. So here we go. Now that I've gone all the way, open up a little more, bleed it out. You can see some little air bubbles coming out as well. Here we go. So some of the pack is being relieved. It's coming out, a little more air bubbles. I'm going to start closing. And as soon as you start closing, there it is, right? So you get some of those air bubbles oil. And I'm just going to pull this back down, push it back up, perfect. Smooth up and down. Again, I'm using extremely thick oil. Usually I wouldn't use such thick oil on a shock because you're going to break something if you're going off jumps, hills, things like that. But again, this is going to go in the rear of a drag car build. So I really do not want soft suspension in the rear. That's the reason why. So now after that, this is why I like the eRevo shocks. They actually fit the GTRs, and the reason why is eRevo, they do make GTR shocks for it, and it's the same diameter as these. So there's different size GTR shocks, but you just slide the spring in. Again, I am using the black ones just in case you're interested and you want to try this for your drag build. And then you just take this little mount here. This is for the spring. Notice these holes have to go over here. This part here on the cap is going to sit there. So you put the spring in first. This is all the way here. I'm going to compress the spring a little. Actually, you don't even need to compress it that much. And then just click in place. It's going to go in there. Grab the screw. And this screw, there's actually an orientation. If you look at this side here, and then you compare it with this other side, you may be able to see it on the camera. See, there's a part that is trimmed. This is where the screw goes. That is meant for the head of the screw to go through. So you're just going to place this here. You're going to use your 2mm driver. As always, I recommend buy quality tools. Use your 2mm driver, drive it in. Do not over tighten. It just has to go in there. As soon as you feel it snug up a little, that's when you stop. Now the spring is kind of loose. All I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn this, and when you want to turn right as if you're screwing on. So that'll make this go down, right? If you're looking at the top of the shock, you turn right, and that's going to bring it down. So right will bring it down, left will bring it up, and I'm just going to bring it down just so the spring doesn't have any play. Once I take that play out, that's where I'm going to stop, and I'm going to do the final adjustments once it's on the car fully built with battery. That's where I'm going to test it. I may put a little more preload. We'll see. I may have to build them again or remove the oil and do it all over again. But anyway, there it is. So now, see, pretty solid. These are going to go in the rear of the shocks. Part of the rules is the suspension has to work on a drag car. So this here works, right? Does full travel. They're just stiff. But anyway, we are golden. So again, this is the standard. This is the GTR. You can also see the difference in the body. The thing that I really like too is this is threaded, so I can just screw it down, screw it up, versus this is preloads. I hate the little preloads. I prefer twisting this, and this is snug, so it's not going to spin on you and right up or down without you wanting it. Now springs with GTR, I actually like using the rear springs in the front. They're longer, and the reason why is because of the way the arms sit on a slash. They actually are not free to go all the way down once the turnbuckles are there. The turnbuckles for the steering actually kind of hold them up to a height. So I found that, especially the blue ones, it's 7449, these work really great with the front GTR shocks in front of a slash, especially when it comes to traction rolling. I find that it doesn't traction roll as easily when I'm running on pavement using the Proline Street Fighter tires. Again, not sponsored by anybody. These are just products that I've used. We'll see. Maybe start using some other products and mention those as well at some point. But again, I like using the rears. Actually, I just realized these are the front. Oh, nope. Yeah, these are the rears, XX long. The spring rate, according to Traxxas, is also 1.004, which is higher than the front spring rate. So it really helps preventing that traction roll. But keep in mind, you're going to be using thicker oil with that as well. But building a shock, that is it. So again, thank you very much for watching. Please comment below, subscribe, hit the bell, like, dislike. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next one. Be good.